Okay, we have to talk about it. So, yesterday, we did make the video talking about the Detroit Red Wings and how everything seems to be culminating into this moment. And I say this moment, but I really mean yesterday's moment, because the Wings ended up playing against the Washington Capitals in a game where we said that the playoff race could very well have been decided by that game. The Caps ended up winning in overtime 4-3, and, you know, we can talk about the game, we could talk about, like, the intricacies of it. Oh, we could talk about DeBrincat and the pass in front of Seider. Like, there are a lot of things that we can break down from that. But one, I didn't watch the game live. I, as I said, was attending a movie premiere in the city here in Vancouver, so I was not able to watch this game as it happened. But when it comes to the now, let's not talk about the game yesterday, let's talk about the now. The Detroit Red Wings have dropped to a 29.6% chance of making the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Capitals have a 65.5% chance. The Flyers have an 85.6% chance. And why is this? Well, if you go over to the NHL standings and you sort by the wild card, you'll see that the Philadelphia Flyers have 82 points in 73 games played, which is more than both Washington and Detroit. Now, Tampa Bay, we could ignore them because that Atlantic division is pretty stacked, with Toronto, Florida, and Boston each leading the charge, so Tampa Bay probably doesn't really have room to move into the top three of the Atlantic. They'll probably be reduced to only being a wild card. But when it comes to that Metro division, hey, everything is tied up in there. Philadelphia 82, Washington 81. Detroit's only real chance at making the postseason is gonna be by beating out Washington for that last wild card. They're probably not gonna catch Tampa Bay. And, of course, not the rest of the Atlantic folks either. So with this in mind, the Wings' one chance at putting a stranglehold on this race against Washington was getting the win yesterday in regulation. They could not do that. They had the lead at times, they blew it, they lost in OT. Had the Wings won in regulation, then they actually would have overtaken the Capitals in the standings, 80 points to 79, but because things went Washington's way, now we have what we have. Let's move over onto the remaining games of the season for the Detroit Red Wings, because this is where things get scary. They have some really competitive teams, wherein they'll be playing off against in their hometowns. Carolina, Florida, Tampa, back to back to back. And that's going to be a really bad one. Then they come back home and play against the Rangers. This is going to be tough. Now, I will say, for the Carolina Hurricanes, they did just drop a game to the Pittsburgh Penguins, so they are vulnerable right now. They're not invincible like some of these other teams near the top of the NHL are, but with the Wings, it doesn't make their job any more easy. Panthers and Lightning are each going to be tough to play off against because, I mean, these Florida teams, they're always pretty good. And then the Rangers were the first team to clinch a playoff spot this year, and it goes without saying they've been pretty good as well. So it's the storm before the calm, I guess you could say, because the end of the season, wherein the Wings play off against the Sabres, Capitals, Penguins, Maple Leafs, and Canadiens twice, this will be sort of the calming down of the end of the year, of course, with the exception being the Toronto Maple Leafs game. They have some easy teams towards the end, but this upcoming stretch is really going to make or break their chances, because if you go over to the Capitals, let's take a look at Washington and see their remaining schedule. They have some games that will probably be difficult too. I mean, they play the Maple Leafs tomorrow. That's never a walk in the park. They're playing the Bruins, which is going to be difficult. But then they do have Buffalo and Pittsburgh shortly after, followed up by Carolina, Ottawa, Detroit, Buffalo once more, Tampa Bay, Boston, and Philly. So I'd say that when it comes to the strength of the schedule, they're roughly the same, it's just they're spread out differently. Like, the Capitals have a hard game in Boston, then two easy games in Buffalo and Pittsburgh, and then a hard game in Carolina, and then an easy game against Ottawa, and then a maybe semi-difficult game against Detroit. Easy game, potentially easy game. So, like, there is a bit of variance with the Capitals. With the Wings, there isn't any. It's all the hard teams and all the easy teams, and then one hard team and then easy teams again. It should be a little bit easier if the Wings are able to escape out of this next 4-game stretch with at least 5 out of a possible 8 points. Like, at this point, you don't even care about the loser point. Tampa Bay's going to be locked in. Carolina, Florida, New York, they're already going to be locked in. Just get as many points as you can. Who cares about the overtime? Who cares about the shootout? When it comes to the Wings, though, there are some things you could discuss as to what they can do to get to that point. And to help us out, I wanted to bring up some conversations that were talked about on the daily general discussion thread here on the Detroit Red Wings subreddit. Of course, everybody's still doom and gloom after yesterday's game against Washington, but here's a comment made by Winged Wheel. Kind of a weird thought, but I think that Dylan Larkin and Lucas Raymond should be separated, and Larkin should go back to centering Kane and DeBrincat. I feel like when Raymond plays with Larkin, he's more likely to defer to him and act as a more complementary player, whereas when he was playing with Compher and Perron, he went beast mode and felt obligated to hold on to the puck. Just my 2 cents. And that is a really interesting Stockholm Syndrome-like quality that you could say exists within the frame of Lucas Raymond. Stockholm Syndrome, that's funny. Stockholm's in Sweden, isn't it? But when it comes to Raymond, he is such a driver of play when he is not playing with drivers of play himself. It's kind of funny where when he's playing with inferior guys, he sort of takes over shifts in a way like Mitch Marner does with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I say Marner because he's been the #1 comparable guy to Lucas Raymond the entire time Raymond was a prospect. There are a bunch of replies to this comment saying, yeah, I mean, everybody agrees with you, it's just Derek Lalonde that doesn't seem to agree. And all Detroit Red Wings line combinations aside, the fact that they're even in this spot in the first place is a good thing, because now that there are meaningful games being played in March, it opens the door up to conversations that we haven't really had in a long time for Red Wings fans. It opens the door up to emotions that fans haven't felt in years. Disappointment at games in March, where you're talking about, yeah, no, we have to win, we have to win, we have to take these 2 points, this is a must-win game. When was the last time the Wings were in a must-win game? It's been a while, right? So this in itself is a good thing, but even though it is not really going all too well and the Wings' playoff chances have dropped to 20-something%, they're still in the midst of it. There still are more emotions and games to go through, so we'll pay attention there. Here's another comment made by Ain't No Buffet, 3 notes. 1, can we stack a power play unit for goodness sake? I'm sick of seeing Perron, Compher, Fabry on our first unit. We literally traded for DeBrincat and signed Kane because they excel in those situations. There's absolutely zero logic behind having them as the second unit. Our units should be DeBrincat, Larkin, Kane, Raymond, Ghost, or Seider. Number 2. Scratch Petrie for Wallman once he's back and move Sherratt to Edvinson's line. Sherratt has played multiple games on his opposite side. And 3. Send Zarnik down and call up Kasper. We need someone with somewhat of a scoring threat, and he's been on the uptick. Kasper needs to experience a playoff-like atmosphere. If he catches on quickly, that could make or break our season. We can't afford to play it safe at this point. It won't get us wins over the teams we have on our schedule. Now, when it comes to power play time, I will say this is sort of the Vancouver move that I like a lot, where you just absolutely disregard the second unit. Who cares about that? The first unit is where all the action comes from. Pedersen, Miller, Besser, Hughes, and, I don't know, a Lindholm or a Kuzmenko or whatever. If the Wings were to do something similar, it would probably look the same like that. DeBrincat, Larkin, Kane, Raymond, and then let's just say Gostisbehere, rather than Seider, because Gostisbehere's had a better offensive history in the NHL. There also are conversations to be had about Petrie, Wallman. I mean, everybody's talking about Jeff Petrie. I made the video a few days ago talking about how he's been a problem for this team. And the argument of sending down Zarnik and calling up Kasper is an interesting one, because it kind of goes against the grain when it comes to giving guys opportunities versus playing the guys that you think would be the most beneficial to your team. Part of the reason Zarnik is up and not Kasper right now is because Zarnik is a pro and he has been here for a while and he knows what it takes to play in the NHL, and you can pretty much limit him to playing in that fourth line role and he'll do a fairly good job at it. For Kasper, he might not even do a good job at it, but he might provide some extra offense too, so there is a little bit of a gamble if you wanted to take when it comes to calling up younger guys and putting them in those positions instead. So, if you're a fan of the Red Wings, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the playoff race? How do you feel about some of these suggested line changes? Would you rather have Raymond and Larkin split away from each other? Would you rather have Kane and DeBrincat on Power Play 1? What are your thoughts on the way their schedule is remaining? And how do you think the Capitals are going to fare in their hunt for that final spot as well? Odds aren't looking good for the Red Wings, but there still is a little bit of hope to be had. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, how you feel about all this and more. I hope you enjoyed this video. Rolls 99, and bye.